Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Penny. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. Hello, Darren Penny.
Hey, it's good to be with you.
I am very excited to have one of my favorite people on my podcast today. And this is still along the lines of our Good Guides series. And Darren really has some great things to offer with Good Guides. And I just said, well, would you come on my podcast show and can we talk about some of this? Since I've had a front row seat to your life for over 30 years now.
Yes,
I know
no
you've got
secrets
something to
here.
offer. Yes. Before we jump into the conversation, though, Darren, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I love my life here in Northern California. I live with my wife, Heather. You might know her. And we have raised two beautiful human beings, one of them 22, one of them 20. They are not living at home, but they are beginning to find their way in this world. And it's so fun to be their dad. I take so much joy in that. So have beautiful friendships here, a wide variety of types of friends I have, and love some of my local relationships, but also get involved with some other guys out of the area and travel to see people in my life. I care deeply about relationships. My professional world is a lot of fun. I'm self-employed, but I'm affiliated with some other organizations. And my professional world is filled with walking with people and really thinking about what do they want with their assets at the end of their life, and have a whole values-driven process I walk people through about estate planning and what do you want to leave your loved ones, and also what do you want to leave the government, your state or federal government. Not many people are real excited about giving too much there. So then I get to ask a follow-up question. You have one more category. You have your loved ones, you have the government, but would you be interested in leaving anything to charitable organizations? And it's amazing how people light up, especially when we open the toolbox that allows them to say, I would love to explore how I can mitigate or even eliminate taxes by giving to charitable organizations. That's so much fun.
Well, I know that to be your heartbeat for sure.
Yeah.
You've loved charity and nonprofits, and you've spent the majority of your business, professional life in there, but honestly, a lot of your personal life over there in these nonprofit realms. So
yeah, there are a lot of people in this world trying and working very hard to make the world a better place, and I get to be a part of that, and it's absolutely a joy. So I love my work. And I've got a little passion project side hustle I'm working on. So that's another part of who I am too. And so, yeah, that's me.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and jump into this idea of good guides. Again, you've had the privilege and the honor, I'm sure, of hearing about it behind the scenes, probably more than you want to.
Oh, no, this is the first I've heard about Good Guides.
You've heard me talking about my guests. You've heard me talking about just the epiphanies that I've had, my guests have had. And I'm very selective of who I bring on my show. And as I look at the different series that I'm doing, the past one was on beliefs. This one's on good guides. This next one's going to be on relationships. It's really who I've been able to watch for years and I can trust that can speak to some of this. And in the work that I do as a leadership coach and trusted advisor, I have seen people intersect with guides. And I began to realize, frankly, there's good guides out there and there's not so good guides out there. And that's a lot of why I wanted to have this conversation, because I love what I do. And I want to see people get the guidance they need. But I want to make sure they stay in the driver's seat.
Mm.
for the type of guides they need for their season of life, maybe at the crossroads of wherever they're at, or where they might want to move forward, or where they might be feeling a little stuck. I want our people to feel empowered to be very selective on who they invite in their life, particularly when they need guidance, because that's really a vulnerable season.
Hmm. Well, that's a powerful word, vulnerable season.
Yeah.
And I think in my own life, and probably in the life of most people, it's the vulnerability in those seasons and times and circumstances of vulnerability where we most need a guide.
Mm,
I mean, if you've ever been lost in the wilderness, you'd
mm-hmm,
pay anything to have a good guide get you
mm,
home. And a good guide in the right circumstance is invaluable. So I guess if I'm just looking back, I think in my own story and life, I first started looking for guides when I was a young kid and I realized I don't have a father
mm,
and I felt lost. I had a mother, I had siblings, three sisters, but I do not have a father who's actively involved in my life in any meaningful way. So I started looking and I was literally looking for fathering, or to use these terms, a really good guide.
mm,
And I did not find it in one person,
mm,
but I found it in a company of men.
mm,
What I was looking for, I mean, I could go down a list and name. It was mostly my friends' fathers
mm,
who I saw. That is a man who is loving his wife well, raising his kids well, working, contributing to the world, making the world a better place. I want to learn from him.
mm,
And sometimes, I would say most of the time, those men and I never had a formal conversation that they were my guide,
mm-hmm.
but they were my guide. I was
Yes.
watching them. I
Sure.
was learning from them. And sadly, as life progresses and time passes, many of them have passed away. Some of them have passed away, but I hold them in my heart. In fact, I have this exercise I do. I love Memorial Day. And every Memorial Day, I sit down with my journal. I could go back over the previous years and I write down the list of people I want to remember. And what
Mm,
I found last Memorial Day was it was a growing list of people who had been guides in my life.
mm,
And I've had another term I've used for these folks, these men in my life. I called them my surrogate fathers. I had a company of men who kind of had this surrogate father role in my life, and
mm,
just beautifully, they were guiding me into how to aim at this point of being a good man. What did
mm,
that look like? I didn't see it inside my own family walls, so I had to look elsewhere. And occasionally, it was a formal conversation,
mm,
but not always.
mm,
And those men were probably my first very intentionally sought out guides in my life.
mm. Is there a story or an example coming to mind?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have several. Yeah, one of them, and interestingly, the first couple that come to mind, these both of these gentlemen have passed away. Um, yeah, one I just went down his memorial this year.
Mm,
Uh, his name is Ted Campbell. Ted was a youth pastor in a church and also a family man. His wife and kids were my age, a little bit older and one younger, but we were growing up together. And he was a youth pastor at this little Southern Baptist church in Riverside, California. And I still remember me and some friends at one point, we got jumped outside of a Del Taco and I got a shiner from it. And, some other things happened that day. I won't go into all the details. But Ted heard about this. And next time he saw me, he said, yeah, Darren, you don't always have to speak up. I was like,
oh.
well, who asked you for advice?
How
But
old
I
were
knew
you?
he was right.
Oh,
I
about
knew
how
he was
old?
right. That was high school.
Gosh, so he was. gently hinting. It sounds like in a fun way, but very intentional about saying
Yeah.
you actually have a moment to hesitate and maybe hold your tongue,
Yeah.
even though you
Yeah.
have the ability to speak
Yeah.
and have that clarity. Maybe that's not a time to use it.
Yeah, exactly. And he and I never talked about it again.
Oh,
We never
funny.
said a word. He just left it at that. Hey, Darren, sometimes you don't have to speak up.
Mm.
And wow, that just landed that day. It landed like a little prickly thorn. I didn't appreciate it. But I know I went home that night and I thought about it. And I've thought about it many times since then. That was a truth bomb. That was wisdom he dropped on me that day.
Mm.
He was offering fathering,
Mm.
mentoring, guiding, kindness, wisdom. He offered it that simple.
Mm.
And he was, in other ways, very intentional about helping guide me. So
Mm.
I deeply, deeply am grateful for Ted. And I got to write him some words in the last days of his life and let him know that. I know
Mm.
his family read those words to him as he probably about 48 hours before he passed.
Mm.
And that was very meaningful. And then several of my friends' fathers, but I was taken on camping trips by families that just kind of introduced me to their family. And I remember one dad showing me, we were driving their old truck up the mountain road and it started overheating. And he just simply said, "Hey, Darren, get the water out of the back. I carry water when I drive up this mountain. I knew it was going to overheat." And he showed me how to deal with an overheating radiator.
Mm.
And another family, they had season tickets to the Dodgers, and
Mm.
they would invite me to a couple of games a year.
Mm.
And I got to ride along in the station wagon to Dodger Stadium and sit in their family seats and eat a Dodger dog. They never let me pay for a thing,
Mm.
but they just let me be with them
Mm.
and see this is what families do together.
Mm.
And they're just beautiful, beautiful moments of me soaking up from these families. And in this
Mm.
case, I would say the husband and wife, my friend's parents, were
Mm.
both my guides,
Mhm.
both Lucy Shear and Jim Shear. And
Mhm.
Jim has passed away.
Mhm.
Uh, so these people were some of my first guides, and Bob Adcock and Ole and Susie Dolly, and just so many of my friends' families I could name that were really
Mm.
good, good guides for me. I'm having one other epiphany.
Mm.
I thought about this before in relationship to finding a guide. It was true of me instinctively as a kid, but I think less instinctively and more volitionally as an adult. We have to first, before we find a guide, we have to first acknowledge where we have lack.
Mm.
I
Wow.
have to acknowledge my own
Mhm.
lack. I don't have a father. I was just talking to somebody recently about some financial advice. I've never been in my mid 50s and been about a decade pre retirement
Mm.
and never been at this spot. And I thought, I need to seek out some guides. I need to talk to some men and women who have been here before.
Mm.
And I have just being intentional about what I don't know
Mhm.
and then seeking those people out. And yeah.
Well, and that goes back to vulnerability, doesn't it?
Ah,
When you identify what you're lacking, you have to identify that you're in a state of need, which is very vulnerable. And I love that you made that point because if we can't be honest with ourselves where we're lacking or where we really feel vulnerable because we've never been here before, we're not supposed to know.
yeah.
The false belief is you better figure this out. You're supposed to know this. A man would know what to do with his money at 55,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. I could easily just with pride not be open to input.
Yes, right. Especially in the world of finances that you work in. I mean, you work with it all
Absolutely.
day long with all these other people.
Hmm.
And to be able to have that humility, but more importantly, just the permission
Hmm.
to have lack.
Hmm.
That can be a vulnerable place for people who love self-sufficiency, as I know you do, who love self-agency, as I know you do, who
Yeah.
loves the independency, which is again, I know you do, but
Yeah.
these are all important things to recognize that there are people out there that know more than we do. And if we can have the humility to just slow down a minute, ask where we lack, engage that vulnerability space, I do believe the guides show up.
Hmm.
Isn't
Hmm.
that something we have found a lot in our, gosh, over 32 years of marriage?
Yes. Yes. And this is so cliche, but I love this quote, and I don't even know where the quote came from, but it plays out in things like the movie Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But the saying and the belief is when the student is ready, the master will arrive.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher will show up, but the teacher isn't going to show up while the student is still filled with pride and arrogance and is unteachable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's amazing when we humble ourselves, acknowledge our lack, our need, our want, whatever it is. It's amazing how the guides will show up. And, in Luke Skywalker's case, of course, it was Yoda
Mm-hmm.
and then Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
But in my own case, I've just found you're right. We've got to get past that hurdle of um, self-determination
Mm-hmm.
and accept I am not the master of all domains. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know is a great way to start a sentence. I don't know. And sometimes I choke on those words trying to get them out because I hate acknowledging that.
Yeah.
That's that deep commitment to self-determination I've been trying to root out for years.
Well, it makes me think of our decision we made early on. We got married early. We got married so young. Now that we're both 55, were we not babies when we got married? We love saying it. We grew up together, but we met each other around 19 and 18 years old and then got married at 23. But I still remember the conversation of us just looking around and realizing, gosh, one out of two marriages are ending in divorce. We're young. We don't really know what we're doing and we're super strong. And we do know what we're doing too. It's both. I don't want to downplay that too much. We knew that we wanted, I remember you saying, you're like, Heath, I want an A+ marriage. And I'm like, me too.
Hmm.
How are these marriages when we were looking at them going past the decades? There wasn't a lot that we really admired, were there? And I think that scared us a little bit going, we're going to need some help. We would be
Hmm.
fools to think we know what we're doing at this young of an age.
Oh yeah.
Let's saddle up to someone and watch and just ask. And it
Yeah.
makes me think about Dick and Sybil.
Yes, they were powerful guides for us for a season. They
Yes.
loved each other well.
Yes.
And they were in their late 50s, early 60s when we first met them.
Right. Which leads me to my next question. Because this is something we've noodled a lot this on this for our whole marriage, but what is some advice you've gotten that still sticks with you? And for example, with Dick and Sybil, they were this
Mm.
couple where they spoke into our financial life.
Hmm.
And I remember you and I did not come from a lot of money and we had a lot of debt from school. We both put ourselves through school. We were
Hmm.
floundered a little bit. And I remember they just said, no matter how much you make, Heather and Darren, do not or drive your stake. And I remember going, drive your stake. What does that mean? And they were talking about kind of like this post, like drive in the ground and never raise, decide what your level of living is,
Mhm.
meet that, and then don't keep raising it just because you make more money.
Right.
Yeah.
So decide which kind of house you want to live in,
Right.
decide what kind of car you want to drive, decide what kind of clothes you want to wear, and then write it down and say, this is me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we don't do that, if we don't drive our stake, we get our next promotion, we get our next job, we get our raise, we start making a little bit more. And then we're
Mm-hmm.
like, I think I need a fancier car. I think I need a bigger house.
Mm-hmm.
I think I need. And we drove our stake, we wrote that down, and I still found myself thinking at times, I think I need this, I need
Mm-hmm.
that, I need this. And at times I did. I ventured into some things that I didn't really need.
Mm-hmm.
But you can always correct those things. But you're right. Dick and Sybil were powerful guides that taught us that truth of drive your stake,
Right.
drive your financial stake. Where is it?
And I thought that was interesting. Out of all the advice they could have given us, they were happily married. They went after the finances, and that's where we realized there's a lot of contention around finances in marriages long
Yeah.
term. And I feel like we were both on the same page on that from the get go because of it started out with Dick and Sybil. We kept going, well, we'll drive our stake, but first we got to figure out what it is. And honestly, the stake had to change a little bit after we brought two little humans into our world. I'm like, I don't think we can live on that stake anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but it was a conversation that guided us, wasn't it?
Yeah. The first stake I needed back in those days was to pay off my student debt.
Yeah.
That's my first stake is get debt free. And then, what do we do with that from there?
Yeah. I remember
Uh,
them teaching us how to double up on our debts and
oh
put more to the
yeah.
principal and live debt free and how freeing that would be in your life. It's just very powerful.
Yeah.
But what other advice is coming to mind from some of these good guides? It has stuck with you over the years.
You know, um, that marriage piece for sure was a good one. I think another thing that I don't know where we heard this, but you and I decided early on, hey, every 5 years, whether we need it or not, we're going to sit down with a counselor together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was great, sage advice that we got.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember us at one point saying, hey, we hit that 5 year mark. We should go talk to a counselor. And we're like, oh, we're doing great though. I mean, everything's fine. Yeah. We sat down with a counselor. I think we finished with that counselor about a year later.
We weren't doing as good as we thought we were.
There was just room for improvement, but that was us saying, hey,
Yeah.
let's go find a guide for our marriage. We've never been married 5 years before. And thank God we were not so proud that we didn't do it
Yes.
because that really helped us in year number 6 clean out some things and lay an even firmer foundation for the next 5 years. And
Yeah.
beautifully rich for us. Yeah.
Yeah. That has been powerful for us because I think you can let things fester and go on for so long that it's a pretty big mess by
Hmm.
the time you stumble into a guide. When reality, you and I are both into preventative health.
Hmm.
Why not be into preventative mental health and emotional health and spiritual health? Why
Yeah.
not get a little tune up
Yeah.
before it gets really big and hard?
Yeah.
And I remember sometimes we were only in for one or two sessions and we're like high
Hmm.
fiving each other out the door, thinking, all right, I think we're doing pretty good. Some
Yeah.
years we couldn't make it to the 5 year mark. I remember going, "Ugh, I think we're on
Yeah.
year whatever, 17. We better go get some help now. Let's not wait just till it gets to that 5th year mark."
Yeah. Yeah. And as we're talking about this, I'm going to pivot a little bit in a new
Sure.
direction. Um, we live in a new era than you and I grew up in. When we were first married, there was no internet.
Mm-hmm.
And the era we live in now, it's easier to dismiss the need for guides because all I need to do is YouTube it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can go on YouTube and watch a video. And I mean, I'm a little bit embarrassed and a little bit exposed to tell you, it was about a decade ago. I really wanted to learn to fly fish. And I didn't know any man in my life that fly fished. So I started watching YouTube videos.
Mm.
And, you can learn a little bit from a YouTube video,
Mm-hmm.
but two things. There's a whole bunch you can't learn. And honestly, there was an ache inside of me.
Hmm.
It felt sad.
Mm.
It felt almost pathetic that I was taking some beautiful, artistic, sporting activity like fly fishing. My deep desire to engage with that, I took that question to YouTube.
Mm.
Ah, in my mind's eye, I would have learned from another man. And it would have been like a river runs through it. And I'm standing on the shore and just,
Mm. It's
that's
beautiful.
what a
Yeah.
good guide is. And
Yeah.
I think here's why I'm saying that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to learn in my own life, and I think I want to encourage others to think about this as well, to perhaps resist the YouTube inclination.
Mm.
and not take my question to YouTube, but to look, where can I have the real human interaction with someone who can teach me to fly fish? I
Yeah.
don't care if I have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather pay a guide and go up on the Truckee River
Mm-hmm.
and spend a couple $100, tip the guide well at the end of the day, and have that human experience, that relational vulnerability to say, I don't know how to tie that knot. Will you show me how to tie that knot? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to use backer,
Mm-hmm.
leader. I don't know how to pick a fly line, floating, sinking. I don't know how to pick a fly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to read the water. Oh, those
Mm.
things. To make ourselves vulnerably available to a guide,
Mm.
because a guide does not want to shame us. A good guide does not want to shame us.
Yeah.
A good guide wants to put our arms around us and go, I would love to teach you to fly fish.
Mm.
I would love to talk to you about your next, perhaps maybe even your last decade of work to
Mm.
prepare for retirement.
Mm.
I would love to talk to you about whatever the case may be. So I guess this inclination to take our questions to YouTube or Google, the internet in general,
Mm-hmm.
I want to resist that. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to encourage folks to consider making that further down the list than our initial reaction. Yeah.
Well, it makes me think of our two adult children who are who call you quite consistently for guidance. Yeah, and me as well. But
Yeah.
they know
Okay.
who to go to for which guidance. They know which is our different expertise areas. So they
Right.
call you a lot more for the finances and some of the other things that strategic thinking. They call me for kind of thinking through some grand plans and some visions, and it's just fun. And then sometimes they want us both on the phone because they want us to both be hearing it.
Yeah.
But how sad if they didn't pick up the phone and call us, but they went and Googled that and just saw a YouTube video on a pertinent
Yes.
question where they really needed that human relationship.
Yes.
And something I'm learning, and I've kind of used this term quite a bit, is you can't get your collective clarity from a video.
No.
It's very one sided. The collective clarity comes from the human interaction
Right.
where each of you, that guide is listening to where you're at and like, oh, you don't know how to tie that? Oh, well, that's where I'll start then. I'll show you how to tie it.
Mhm.
You're not being subjected to some sort of curriculum or agenda where nobody really cares what you know or don't know. They're
Yeah.
here just to lay out the agenda. And a good guide says, not only doesn't shame you, I love that you brought that up, but it really meets you where you're at and says, what is it that
Mhm.
you need to know?
Mhm.
And how can I serve this process? How can I support whatever it is that you want to get better in? That I
Yeah.
actually have expertise. And more importantly, if they don't have the expertise, say, oh, I'm so sorry, but that is not my area of expertise.
Right. Right. Yeah. So the other acknowledgement I have is that our guides are human too.
Mm,
And I think back some of the guides that I have early in my career,
mm,
people who are ahead of us in our career path, maybe even a boss or supervisor.
mm-hmm,
Um, I've had multiple supervisors over my career, and some of them were just supervisors. A couple of them were really guides,
mm,
really guides. And they show you the signposts and they teach you how to do the job in a relational, nuanced way, a rich way, a place that embetters you and the folks you work with.
mm,
That's a guide. And many guides we keep with us
mm,
for a long, long time. Some guides are just a very short season. So I think that was just another thought I had is sometimes we just get to gently part ways. And it's not that the guide is wrong or we're wrong, but we move on.
mm,
We move
mm,
on. There are
mm,
stages to life, and it's okay to outgrow a guide.
mm,
It's okay to have changed interests or
mm-hmm,
desires or to move on for whatever reasons. And years and years ago, I heard somebody talk about the idea Kodak had a big ad for their
mm.
for their instant cameras. They've kind of even made a resurgence. Those little, Instamatic, a little
Yes.
paper comes out and
Yeah.
um, And the idea of their marketing ad was you always have to have your camera with you. Take your Kodak wherever you go to capture the Kodak moment.
Mm,
As though we can capture life in all these moments. But life isn't static. You can take a
mhm,
picture, but, live another 30 minutes and that picture's outdated.
mm,
So our guides will transition. I have
mhm,
more new guides ahead of me, and I have many guides that I've just moved on or they've moved on, and that's okay.
mm,
Yeah. Maybe there are some guides with us the whole journey.
mm,
Longtime friends, longtime mentors, beautiful, beautiful parents, of course.
mhm.
I hope that I get to be a guide in my children's life well into their early adult years, mid adult years, family years, later years. I want to be a guide for them. Yeah,
Well,
whatever capacity they need.
and I just heard you describing this 2 nights ago to somebody asking about parenting.
Hmm.
And I loved the way you described it because my question really is what makes your 20-year-old son and your 22-year-old daughter still call you
Hmm.
and want your input? And I heard you describe the type of guide or father you want to be, which is different with
Hmm.
adult children. I don't even like to call them adult children. They're adults.
Hmm.
But what's some of your philosophy around this idea of being a good guide to your adult kids in your life?
Wow. Honestly, I don't even remember how I answered that 2 nights ago, but I'm just going to riff on how I answer that right now.
Yes. Well, I'll give you a little hint. I want to be your first call.
Oh, I
Do you
love
remember
that.
that? Do you remember that?
I want to say I do, but I don't.
Well, you go ahead and you riff for a little bit, and then I'll fill in what I heard. So together we will get our collective clarity.
Okay, let's do it. Um, I think the first thing I think about with my kids is they're growing, they're going through life, and I'm growing, I'm going through life. So
Mhm,
neither one of us is static. We're
mhm,
two dynamic, moving, changing entities. I mean, not only are we flying through space at thousands of miles an hour on this spinning ball that we call Earth, but we're growing in our own souls, our
mhm,
minds, our hearts, our relationships. We're all growing.
mhm,
And I just want to acknowledge, oh, yeah, we've got to always be open to what this is because it's changing for you and it's changing for me.
mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Um,
That's good. And the other thing I heard you say too was you can tell me anything and I want to be your first call.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
listed a lot of like intense examples
Oh,
that
yeah.
this new generation is grappling with.
Yeah.
And you listed them outright. You can tell me this, you can tell me this, you can tell me this.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to scare me off. Nothing's going to make me stop you loving you more. Whatever it is you're grappling with,
Yeah.
you can tell me anything.
Yeah, you can tell me anything. And I did, you're right. I mean, to go down the list, I remember some of the things I said. You can call me and you don't have to hide anything. You can tell me, hey, I really blew it. I got scammed online and I
Mm,
lost this amount of money. I really blew it. I got pulled over. I got a big ticket. I really blew it. I got so and so in a lot of trouble because of something I did. Or,
mm,
I mean, to be real specific, adult, and this isn't my kids right now. I'm not speaking for actually my kids, but the big things that can really, what? Things like I've got to declare bankruptcy.
mm,
Um, I am pregnant, or I got a girl pregnant.
mm-hmm.
Or, I mean, these are big things.
Yeah. Or sexual identity. I remember you bringing up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. These
Yeah.
the things that young people would love to share
Mm-hmm.
with a trusted parent. But here my question for myself and others is, do they know it's safe?
Mm,
Do they know if they share it that I will be a partner? I will partner with them. If they
mm-hmm.
tell me anything, I will partner with them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing you can do to break the bond of love that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or our desire to meet you wherever you are in your vulnerability.
Yes.
We will back you.
Right. And I will not shame you. And
Hmm.
there will be consequences for your actions. And I am not going to shield you from the consequences.
Hmm.
If you did something with consequences, I will walk with you while you are subject to those consequences. You will
Hmm.
not be alone, but I will not shield you from the consequences.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
That was the answer. That was the one I just looked at. And I thought, wow, that was inspiring for me to hear as your co-parent and realizing it really has been it's been our playbook. Just meet your kids where you're at. I don't think there's a lot you have to read about parenting. I'm going to say a pretty sweeping statement, but feel free to contradict me, Darren. But
Mhm,
all these parenting books and everything out there, I just go, you love your kid, you meet them where they're at, and you stay close in relationship.
mhm.
Don't you think that's like the main thing as we look at being a guide? And then hasn't that carried over into us finding good guides and wanting to be good guides? It's the
Yeah.
relationship, right?
Yes. It's the relationship. And I think it's this idea of I want to be a person that offers relational safety.
Mm,
And I want to offer it first. And it sounds interestingly selfish, but I want to be safe with myself first. If
mm,
I mistreat myself, if I'm harsh with myself, I'm going to mistreat others. My own soul, my own desires need to know I get to be safe with myself. I'm not going to grab myself by the nape of the neck anymore and be harsh with myself. And then I want to extend that to my closest relationships, my wife, my life partner. I want to extend that to my kids. I want to
mm-hmm,
extend that to my closest friends. I want to extend that to my clients. I am a safe person for you. And you can share with me, you can
mm,
confide in me, and I care. And then there also gets to be some boundaries. I will not overfunction for you. I will not shield you from the consequences. Some things will naturally need to play out, but I'll be with you in it.
mm.
Yeah.
I love that because when you start with yourself, that's what you actually will offer. And the
Yeah.
biggest myth or lie we tell ourselves is, I can be harsh to myself or mean to myself, but
Right.
it won't eke out
Yeah.
to my kids, my spouses, my friends, the people I lead. In the work that I do, I want to say that's the number one lie.
Yeah.
And that's why I always say leadership starts from within. If you
Yeah.
cannot grapple with how you treat yourself and are honest about it, you won't be able to authentically show up and treat people in a different manner.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of authenticity. Who we are
Mhm.
inside is who we are on the outside. And so we have to be congruent. If we want to be a safe place or a safe guide or a good guide, we have to grapple with what type of guide are we to ourselves.
Yeah. So true.
I love
So
that you brought
true.
that up. That's a really good thought.
Well, and I can be a little vulnerable and self-confessing here too. About a year ago, I am not an avid golfer. I like golf, but I'm still pretty bad at it. But for some reason, I think myself and other golfers suffer from this thing where um, I plan on playing maybe a dozen times a year, and I really want to be and expect myself to be good 12
Mm,
times a year when I go out. And that's just not the way golf works. It is an
hmm.
insanely difficult thing to do. And I missed a putt on the golf course. And I said out loud some terribly harsh things to myself, judged myself, was harsh with myself, condemned myself, and told myself what I thought of myself. And I said them out loud.
Mm,
And my son was standing on the green a few feet away from me.
mm,
And I thought, oh, I just modeled incredible self harshness to my son.
mm,
And I had to go back and talk to him about that later and make amends and apologize and own it
mm,
and acknowledge how ugly that was for him to witness.
hmm.
Because I don't ever want him to hear me talk to myself that way. I don't want to talk to myself that way. And then I don't want him to think I can't mess up. I can't miss I'm putting it in
Mm-hmm.
air quotes, the easy putts in life, or my dad's going to judge me harshly. No,
Mm-hmm.
I want to be a guide filled with self-acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
with acceptance for him and others that says, yeah, mistakes are so normal. Sometimes you're going to miss the 2 foot putt. Sometimes you might miss the 3 inch putt.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Put the stroke on your scorecard, pick up the ball, and keep walking. There's another hole ahead. Don't get
Mm-hmm.
stuck.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, and then I think it just keeps the standard high for the type of guide you want to be, but the type of guide you want to attract. And one of the things I've admired about you is your clear, concise way of confronting poor behavior, but also engaging and thinking the best of people.
Mhm.
You're neither passive nor aggressive. You have that nice, beautiful in the middle that shows up in an assertive, confident way. And
Mhm.
I've watched you handle very difficult conversations with
Mhm.
respect and kindness and love.
Mhm.
And I've also watched you throw down
Mhm.
because the other person hasn't listened to you, and makes me think of when we were in the airport. I don't know if it's a couple of years ago, but it was so shocking to hear you talk so
Mm.
aggressively. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I
And
do remember that.
this was a
Yeah.
guide in our life, and you had to call with some financial questions, and they were very reasonable questions. And all of a sudden, I heard you say something like, "I don't appreciate the way you're talking to me. I'm asking you a question. And if you can't answer this question with respect, then this conversation's over." I'd never heard you say that. And I was
Yeah.
like, I stopped whatever I was doing. It's probably scrolling on my phone or something. I looked over at you like, who are you talking to? I
Mhm.
I just was amazed. And then I heard, I guess he changed his tone. And I heard you stay
Mhm.
on the tone and finish the conversation.
Mhm.
Do you want to
Yeah.
speak to that about just healthy assertiveness?
Yeah. Sure, I can. I would, just so you know, of course, I'm not going to name the individual, but I would put him in a different category. I would have never considered him a guide in my life.
Mm,
He was somebody who was a paid advisor to do a task that I hired him to do for my business.
mm,
And he became incredibly difficult to work with, judgmental, and accusatory and demeaning
mm,
over the period of multiple years.
mm-hmm,
And when that conversation that you overheard in the airport was happening, I was shocked.
mm-hmm,
And people just don't talk to other people that way,
mm-hmm.
especially people that they have worked with for a long time. And he had taken liberties and he really did cross a line. And that particular project he was working on was the last project he ever did for me.
Mhm.
So we ended that because I couldn't move forward with somebody that was that way. And I was not rude to him, but I did let him know I will not be renewing my contract with you next year. And we're going to go a different direction.
Mhm.
And yeah, totally appropriate. I needed to do that. If I didn't do that, I would have lost respect for myself
Mm. Mhm.
because people do not talk to people the way he was speaking to me in a
Mm.
demeaning, accusatory, belittling way. And he was doing it in a way that wasn't subtle and it wasn't a simple oversight. He was trying to exert superiority over me and diminish my capacity. Well, yes, I have diminished capacity. That's why I hired you to do this.
Mm. Mhm.
And so anyway, but yeah, we get to change guides.
Well, it
And
goes back to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to
sure.
just highlight the word shame used earlier.
Yeah.
Zero tolerance for shame, whether it's a paid advisor in your life or a mentoring
Mhm.
or formal or informal, it doesn't matter. It
Mhm.
sounded like you have this standard and this non-negotiable.
Yeah, it is non-negotiable.
Mhm.
And there are some powerful ways to do that to end a relationship. Sometimes somebody just gets a little sloppy, and when they get that way with us, they might not be mean to be intentionally shaming. Another time, you and I were in a public place together, and somebody said something very rude to both of us,
Mhm.
and I was the one he was engaging with verbally, And when he did, I just stared at him like, I'm going to let you think about that. I'm just going to let those words ring in the air.
I remember
And
that. Ted would be proud of you. You held your tongue, hon. You didn't
yeah,
speak up, but you stayed in an assertive presence.
I didn't speak up, but we just let his words kind of linger on the air as the last thing said. And we could have counted out loud 1001,
Yeah.
1002, and we probably got to about 1005. And he said, oh, or, and he kind of backtracked and
Yes.
made good because he heard himself. It just was
Yes.
resonating.
Yes.
So, and we still do business with them. That's
Yep.
perfectly fine. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And he made it right.
he did make it right. He did.
Mm-hmm.
He did. He acknowledged that. So, and silence is a very powerful moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ever feeling like you might be getting diminished, shamed, mistreated, silence, or simply repeating back somebody's last phrase.
Mm-hmm.
To repeat back their last phrase, be very brief, and then stop. It is so haunting to have our own words repeated back to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's powerful. And often
Mm-hmm.
that's all somebody needs. And then they hear themselves.
Yeah.
And you can get back on track then. Um, I would say with the vast majority of my guides, those types of interactions have not been necessary.
Yeah. Well said. Well, and I think, we're entering to that last third of our life. We've been talking about it, and we've got a joking going, I guess we need to really be conscious of the fact that people are looking to us for guides. And I know you and I sometimes joke about like, what are they looking to us for?
Yeah. I need
But
a guide as much as they do.
exactly. And I think that is part of the I don't know. I think that what I appreciate most about good guides is just the equity. They don't act like superiority. They don't
Yeah.
act like they have the answers. They're just willing.
Yeah.
The visual I have is like I've got my little backpack on and I'm trying to find my trail and my path, and they put their backpack on and they walk next to me
Hmm.
until I find the trail. I mean, that's to me
Yeah.
is just probably my favorite picture of a good guide. They're not sitting there yelling at me from a bullhorn or jumping in their Jeep and run alongside of me. They're not, they're just putting on
Yeah.
their backpack with me saying, "Yeah, I know. Let's figure this out together and we'll
Yeah.
we'll journey down the road, and I believe in your clarity and your confidence and your courage. You don't and I'm here to assist you to access that." But
Yeah.
I guess I want to pivot over to that. The really the awareness of who do you want to be
Hmm.
as a
Hmm.
guide?
Well, I was in a conversation recently with a group of men, all talking about kind of finishing life well.
Mm,
And I was the youngest man in the room of about 30 men. So as we were going through and having this beautiful discussion, there was a lot of intentionality around who do we want to be? How do we want to show up? And the one thing I know I don't want to do is I don't want to withdraw from society.
mm,
I don't want to withdraw and not be available. I want to be the type of person that others know I can reach out to him.
mm,
I want to be the available, and this is a weird word to use, but I was encouraged to start using this. I want to be the available sage
mm,
for the younger generation to reach out to.
mm,
And I don't think of myself as a sage. To
mm-hmm,
me, a sage is much wiser than the person I know myself to be. But I was very much encouraged. No, begin thinking of yourself as the sage, because
mm,
there are many others, younger years, less life experiences, hungry
mm,
for something you have.
mm,
And step into this place of sageness.
mm,
Be the sage. Be the sage that I would have wanted to have in my own journey. And quite
mm,
frankly, I found many, many times over
mm,
in this person and this person and that beautiful person. And I want to be that sage for years to come.
mm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, as we wrap up, what guidance would you like to offer our listeners who
Mhm.
either might be looking for a good guide, who might be needing somebody to come alongside them? They're in a vulnerable space,
Mhm.
Or maybe they're trying to be a good guide.
Mhm.
They know that's where they need to start shifting.
Mhm.
What would be some encouragement you would leave our listeners?
I think my encouragement would be that it's going to feel risky.
Mm,
Whether you're seeking a guide and putting yourself out there saying, I need to acknowledge what I don't know, and I'm looking for somebody who does know,
mm,
whether it's fly fishing or finances or parenting or
mhm,
marriage or anything,
mm,
anything, take the risk. There's going to be risk involved.
mm,
And be willing to put yourself out there. Resist the temptation to preserve your vulnerability and turn to the internet.
mm,
Resist that. Don't turn to the internet. Don't turn to the YouTube video. Put yourself out there relationally.
mm,
Take that risk. And then for each one of us where we can be the sage, we can be the guide.
mhm,
I think I would like to say what somebody said to me a couple weeks ago. He said to me, just because you feel unfinished does
mm,
not disqualify you.
mm,
There are unfinished places in me all over. I am still going to be in the future much better than I am today. And I'm aware of areas I need to grow. But if I wait until I have everything in me perfectly aligned before I offer to others, I'll never offer to others.
mm,
I'll be stuck on project self perfection and I'll never achieve that.
mm,
So acknowledge I'm an unfinished man and I'm perfectly qualified to still be the guide, the sage for others.
mm.
The world needs guides.
I love
Everybody
that.
can guide somebody.
I think it's the perfect place to end, Darren. That is just beautiful. Take the risk. I love that.
Take the risk.
And I would even add on, because you mentioned this earlier, but I think it's worth repeating. Know yourself. Know
Yeah.
how you're talking to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Stay in
Yeah.
that space so that you can take a clear picture of yourself to a guide to say, this
Yeah.
is what I need help in, and this is how I want to treat myself, and this is what I really want to learn.
Yes.
Thanks
I
for coming
love
on
it.
my show today.
Yeah. I
Fun
love
having you.
talking about this with you. It's a beautiful topic. Well done.
Oh, thank you, Darren. And thanks for all you do. And I'm, like I said, I get a front row seat watching you professionally guiding people, personally guiding people. And I see people reaching out to you quite a bit, loving that acceptance that they get from you. And
Okay.
that's why I thought of you for
Ah,
this
good.
series. So thank you so much
Thanks
for
so much.
modeling that. And thank you,
All right.
listeners, for joining us today. And if you like what you've heard, please follow us, review. That really helps us out. And we're happy to just keep showing up and giving you some great food for thought as you step into the lives that only you are made for. Cheering you guys on.
Well done, baby.
Thanks, hon.
That's a great topic.